Everybody, welcome to the Teach Different podcast. Great to have you back listening. We're going to bring in Muhammad Ali today. We have a quote or two already in the library from Muhammad Ali. And this one is going to be on generosity. He's such an amazing figure in American society, really worldwide. He has had worldwide impact. And I've spent some time actually going to a website dedicated to him, Muhammad Ali Center, I believe it's called, and they have some great quotes there. We got one today that I think we're gonna have a fun time with. It's just going to be Stephen and me today, and we're going to break this down using the Teach Different method. We'll do that claim and that counterclaim and that tension between the two different ways of looking at something, and then maybe put in some good storytelling, personal experiences. And we hope you do the same. You know, as you listen to these, wherever you're listening to them, always be thinking about, how does this impact your life? How does this connect to your life? How does this speak to you? That is the ultimate, I think, value of this method and using these quotes from other people. How does it speak to us, and how does it make us connected to others? And then we'll ask some questions, hopefully, as they come up throughout. So here we go. Muhammad Ali. There's actually a full quote. I'm going to read the full quote and then just take the part that we're going to be looking at. I try not to speak about all the charities and people I help, because I believe we can only be truly generous when we expect nothing in return. We're going to focus on just that last part. I believe we can only be truly generous when we expect nothing in return. Steve, what are your initial thoughts on this claim here?
The definition of generosity is linked to what happens after you give something, and that it's not dealing with the motivation of being generous. So the quote's basically saying that if you expect something in return, you're not really generous, you're transactional. If you're truly generous, you're willing to give something because it's right, or because it has some just value, inherent value in it. And if you expect something in return, it's cheapening it.
Yeah, that generosity is something that flows from you with no expectation of consequences. That there's a pure intention. Gosh, this goes right to morality and doing something out of duty. If it's your duty to be generous to others, you're being generous, and you're not thinking, what am I going to get back from this? I'm just going to give, and I'm good with myself. I'm at peace with my own soul and my own motivations and intentions for doing what I do. And I'm not going to judge the rightness or wrongness of my actions by how it's received. Man, that takes a strength of character. But I think that's what he's saying there.
Well, and you mentioned duty. I didn't think about that, because sometimes people are generous out of a sense of duty, and they really don't think about how it's being received. It's just the right thing to do because it's their duty. That's, I guess, one way to think about what generous means. I was thinking of it meaning more, being generous shows that you could give, you could also not give. There is no compunction to do either. Like, you don't have a sense of duty, and that's why you're being generous. You literally have no reason to be one or the other, but you choose to give and be generous on your own. Not out of a sense of duty, but just out of a free will.
Interesting. So you're saying it should be choice. I can see choice and duty being a motivation to
I
fit with
agree
this. Yeah.
that those could be two reasons that you're generous. But the quote is basically saying that, okay, whatever the reasons are, you can't expect things in return. Like if you decide to be generous and you're really, really nice and you want to do something for someone, you have got to prepare yourself for anything when you do that, because you can't think about any of the consequences. It's got to be something you're comfortable with in and of itself. And I'm already thinking about people in my life who I've given things to, and maybe they haven't used it in the way that like I would have liked. But I think I adhere to this quote for the most part. The minute I give something, it is gone. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to I
I
don't
don't,
want to hope for anything.
and I think that not having an emotional attachment to how it's received is probably a healthy mindset to have when you give.
I agree.
But I know people who give with an expectation for
Well,
return. And
and that's
and you
not
know, one
giving.
thing
That's
real
not
quick,
generosity.
right? I would agree. That's a
That's what this
different
quote's saying.
different definition, certainly. This brings me back to a philosophy class I took in college, where I remember the professor talking about generosity, and he likened it to the sun. That it was ethics of generosity, and he said we should be like the sun. We should just give our rays away with no expectation of return. You just emanate the good forces of your personality with no expectation. Anyway, that's what I remembered from college that I think speaks to this as well. The sun.
Now I'm thinking of that book, The Giving Tree, which I really liked growing up, but I've learned that it's pretty controversial for some people, because what was it about? It was about a tree that was so generous. It kept giving and giving and giving because it was in its nature and it was so generous, and it got, you could argue, taken advantage of. Maybe we're going to dip into the counterclaim here. It got taken advantage of by the boy, right, who grew into a man and kept just using the tree for his own life and his own happiness. And then I remember the picture of the tree. It had the little boy and his girlfriend with a heart on the tree. You know, even he found a greater love than the tree. It was kind of sad, actually. The more you look at it, this generosity just turned into providing for someone their whole life, and then it ends with the boy, who's now an old man, sitting on the stump and said, I just need a place to sit. I'm tired of life.
Yeah, right.
And then the tree was happy.
Right.
I-
And and so that's more of the downsides of generosity. I'm not convinced that that totally fits into the quote. I believe we can truly be generous when we expect nothing in return.
well, this is the counterclaim would be there's a way to be generous where
Without, yeah,
there's a little bit of, you're doing it for more than just the generosity. You're doing it because you do want something from the other person, and you don't have to do it for the person. You don't have to. Like, this is back to my free will thing. The counterclaim, I think, is you're generous, but you really want the person to do something with it, and that's why you're being generous.
and you see love, care, attention, and concern from others manifested in them being generous to you. You read um, other people's care and love for you as them doing things for you. That's what you interpret as care and concern. So if you're generous to them and you don't get something back, you don't feel like there's a reciprocal relationship.
Like even appreciation
Yeah, or
or
even
a thank you.
right, right.
You'd think that you should at least hope that the person you're generous to is going to make you feel appreciated that you were generous.
Or known that your act of generosity was met with an appreciation. So I don't.
Well, look, we could
I
talk to
think you can
parents
be.
here. Let's
Here.
talk to
I
parents.
think you can be generous and expect a little bit in return, at least an appreciation, a thank you. I don't think that that's unwarranted. Where were you going with parents?
Just parents raising kids and, realizing as they go through the development stages, they go through these very selfish, egoistic stages where, you're putting a roof over their head. You're giving them, you're paying for their student fees. You're giving them an allowance. You've helped them get a car, whatever. I just did material things. They don't always appreciate this stuff. They're not always saying thank you. It gets lost in the mix in the household sometime. I'm just giving a situation where I just feel that a lot of parents maybe question this I don't know, generosity. Maybe there's another motivation for providing for someone who's not really appreciating you that
Yeah.
pushes it forward. But anyway, I was just
Truth be
thinking of that.
told, as a parent myself, with two kids, I, when you give, and parenting is all about giving on every level, emotional, financial, everything. You do give because, I mean, when they're really young, you're not expecting anything in return, and even when they're older, I guess pure parenting is giving without really expecting things in return. So I'm falling on the claim here. But having said that, you do yearn for an appreciation. You yearn for later in life them to do things and say things that recognize your contributions. But I still think at our best, parents, that's not why we're doing what we're doing, but gosh, it feels good. Am I on the claim or the counterclaim here?
I don't know. I just had running through my head someone who has children and is hoping that they'll take care of them when they get older. I don't know if that's an expectation, but come on, let's just be realistic. If you're raising people in this world and you just would hope that they would want to take care of you when you need them. But again, that's
That's the
an
ultimate
expectation.
gesture. That's the ultimate gesture of return of love. To
Yeah.
be taken care of by your kids in your yeah.
And some cultures would call it a duty. I'm not saying that's not love, but it's a different. There's a duty to that. In fact, other cultures, American culture is much less inclined to expect things like that. In other cultures, I think that the elders are the ones that really the people in the family, the children and the cousins and they're kind of expected to take care of the elders a bit more than in our society. Our society is a bit more independent.
I know someone right now who's caring for her father who has dementia and Parkinson's, and it is just tough. The generosity of your time and your spirit and your love that you have to give on a daily basis, and to at the same time expect nothing in return. That's a high order, and with dementia, it's difficult because you don't, you're not recognized in the same way that you were earlier. Your
Yeah.
parents have a harder time even recognizing you. So you can do that, I think, but you it's okay to expect something. I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit on the counterclaim again.
Yeah.
And where do you get that if you can't get it from the person that you're caring for? This is a
It's a good it is a good quote. You made me think that the the less you get back after you're generous, the more you're going to start feeling like it's a duty if you're going to continue doing it. You know, if you're not getting anything back that's fueling that fire, if you're going to continue doing those things for someone, you have got to achieve, or you've got to tap into something greater than maybe even an emotional feeling of love and respect and appreciation. You got to get beyond that and go duty. I have to do this, and
because
that's why
duty
I'm doing
gets
it.
you through, right?
Right.
Duty gets you over that hump. Like, okay,
Yes.
I got to do this. This is an obligation. I'm not getting much in return.
Yeah.
There's got to be some motivation for me to continue to do this, or it's not going to be done.
Right. And duty can be a motivation, a big one. Yeah, that's interesting. So what about an essential question? Read the quote again.
I believe we can only be truly generous when we expect nothing in return. Can we be generous without expectations?
Yeah.
What's the healthiest way to express your generosity?
What is generosity?
What is generosity?
What's the motivation for generosity?
Does generosity require something in return? Or can it live alone as something valuable without?
Right.
I believe we can only be truly generous when we expect nothing in return. Muhammad Ali. What a cool thing that he said this. You know, he had a lot, very active charitable organizations, you know, and
Yeah.
he's a, think of how much he gave.
Oh yeah. Well, think of anonymous donors, people who insist on not being recognized.
Yeah.
That's
But I would say that people who give their name when they donate, it's not like they're not generous.
yeah,
To
that's the
want a little bit of yeah, I did give a little bit. I mean, I think there's generosity there. That's being truly generous, even though you're putting your name to it.
yeah, and I was drifting to the counterclaim again,
Yeah.
just naturally, just thinking that giving to someone that you believe in, that works hard, you're gonna expect them to do that if you give. That's part of the reason you're doing it. You wouldn't just be giving it to someone haphazardly and not caring what they're going to do it, how they're going to use it. You give it to people that you invest in people. How about that?
Yeah.
How about a question like, what's the difference between generosity and investment in people? That might bring that out, because investment is definitely, you need a return.
Sure.
Yeah. Good quote.
Yeah, this is great. All right, Muhammad Ali. I believe we can only be truly generous when we expect nothing in return. We worked really well with the claim and the counterclaim, got some questions in there, and I'm left really thinking about this one revisiting this one. I think I'm going to put this one off of bring it into class and see what my students think of it. I bet they have some interesting views on generosity. All right, thank you everybody, and appreciate the listenership on this podcast. We just love doing these, and we're looking forward to the next one. Thank you so much. Take care.